Today we're talking about how to build and level Camazotz. This will be a rather quick video hopefully, so we begin right with the leveling order. On level 1, opposing to what many of you think, you should probably level your 1, the Screech, or your 3, Devour, depending on how you want to play. With Screech you get a tiny bit of extra damage on the camps, a tiny bit of extra clear, whereas with your 3 you get a tiny bit of extra sustain, so if you want to heal up after the camp, you can level your 3 right away. It seems a little counterintuitive because many people will think that you should start with the 2 Vampire Bats as it gets that passive buff on the minion camps, but it actually slows down your clear as it only hits 1 target, whereas both other abilities can hit all 3 targets and help you clear the small minions very, very fast. The only exception here would be if you're with a teammate that will easily clear the small minions on his own with some AoE swing or something like that, and that way you can actually get some extra healing off as well as getting that extra passive buff, which can be nice, but generally I would recommend leveling the 1 or the 3 because it makes a lot more sense, not only because of the minions but also the wave that you have to clear after. For the wave that you will clear after if you move into solo lane especially, your 1 will allow you to get damage on all the minions, your 3 will allow you to get damage on 3 minions at least, whereas your 2 will only allow for 1 minion, is only good for really strong early aggression or bullying. So all in all 3 abilities have a reasoning to be used, but most of the time it should be between the 1 and the 3. After that, I would recommend leveling the Escape in any scenario, just so you have an option to get out if things don't work out and you have an option to heal up. And then level whatever you haven't leveled yet. In most cases, this will be the 2. Unless you're looking for very early aggression, think you don't need the Escape. After that, your leveling priority should shift to 2. Actually, I would actually value the 2 over the ultimate, despite of the fact that the ultimate gives you a little more damage. You have to confirm all 3 swoops for the ultimate to actually deal more damage than the 2. So I made a mistake by leveling that differently here in this video. The priority after the 2 should be the ultimate, then the 1, Screech, and last but not least, Devourer, unless you feel like you don't want to aggress as much and you need more sustain, in which case the Devourer gets more priority. Also, if you're not playing him in jungle, you're playing him in a solo lane, then Devourer is a lot more helpful for sustaining in lane and being a lane bully, but for now, we're mostly talking jungle here. When it comes to his item builds, there are 2 things that are worth keeping in mind. One of them is the fact that Camazotz healing scales with power. So the heal on the 2 actually is just 20 flat healing, which is very, very low, but it scales with your power by 100%. So the more power you have, the more your heal will do, and it's a quite significant amount. So if I have 200 power as compared to the Camazotz that builds with the defense, I'm going to heal a lot more. At the same time, you also have to keep in mind that a lot of your healing are not percentage values. I don't think he actually has any percentage healing outside of his mana pools or his essence pools in his passive. As such, you can go into defense with health if you want to make use of the passive a lot, but if you want to optimize the healing that you're getting in regards to the defense that you're having, then you should be better off going into defense items that don't have any actual health on them, but just focus on heavier defense and that way get a lot more out of your healing. As such, optimal items for him are often those which include defense as well as power. For a very aggressive build, I would recommend a combination of Jotun's Wrath, potentially Hydra's Lament, depending on if you feel confident hitting basic attacks in between, Void Shield if you don't, Shifter's Shield because it's generally a really strong item when it comes to power and having defense, Titan's Bane, and then a situational defense item, because at that point you should have enough power and you can just allow to go for some more defense. In this particular scenario I went for Bulwark because the enemy team was too bursty, but it really depends. Now, if you want more defense in your build, then you can go into defense right after Jotun's Wrath, in my opinion. You can, for example, go for Jotun's Wrath, and then go for Spirit Robe, Titan's Bane, Mantle of Discord, and whatever situational you need at that point. That way, you will have plenty of defense, you will be able to stay in fights much, much longer, you will still have a solid amount of power for healing, and as such you will heal a lot while not taking a lot of damage. And that's what I felt so far from the games I've played actually works best for him, as his burst obviously falls off the longer the game goes, as he's very, very ability focused. With all this talk about ability power, some of you have probably already thought about this item. Transcendence. Transcendence is an item that I typically don't recommend on junglers, simply because of the fact that you have to stack it. Stacking takes time, and while it is effective without the stacks, it just isn't really the natural item for a character that is strongest around mid-game, where you really need all the power you can get, and Transcendence kind of delays you. With Camazotz, I will kind of make an exception here. As a matter of fact, Camazotz has healing that scales off power. We've talked about this. And what that means is you don't need penetration for that to be effective, but the most effective thing you can have here is raw power. As such, no other item really comes close in the amount of pure healing that it gives you, other than those items that actually amplify your healing. When it comes to what you can build in power for the healing that Transcendence gives you. So I still probably wouldn't build Transcendence all too often, but it is a justifiable pickup. If you want to pick it up, you should probably pick it up after Jotuns, so you got that initial power CDR penetration spike, and then you get some extra power from that. And then just go on with your build as you want, either with more defense or with more power once again. I imagine a Shifter's Shield after that would be very beneficial to just maximize that healing as much as possible, but there are definitely other options as well. That's all the options I'd like to point out here. And before we close this off, a quick word on combat strategies. With Camazotz, you don't really have any lockdown. The best engage is having a teammate engage for you. Obviously, that's not always the case, but in an ideal scenario, they CC the enemy and you go in. If there's no CC available to you and you just have to rely on your own abilities, typically you want to try and land the 2 first. You get a damage damage for landing the 1 first, but if you don't land the 2, then you basically know that you can disengage at that point, and landing the 2 makes the rest of your abilities easier to hit. So you can basically determine if an engage is going to be successful by landing your 2 first, and even though the damage is a little lower, it will pay off in the end as you have more setup for the rest of your kit. Optimally, if your enemy has no escape, just use the 1 and 2 in succession. Use the 3 to get close if you have to, otherwise it's better to keep it for sustain, and the ultimate is best used to finish off kills. That's pretty much all there is to his basic ability rotation. Obviously, you can vary between them a lot because there's no real setup in between them. You want to use the 1 early in the fight so you get the stared for the rest of your abilities, and you can even use the 1, disengage and then re-engage. But overall, every ability has its own effect that gives it a reason to be used first, and his ability rotations are rather simple compared to others. Basic attack cancel when you can, but it's not a must, and never forget to put your 2 on jungle camps when clearing them. That's my basic guide for Camazotz. I hope this was helpful, I hope this was informative. Thank you guys for watching, I see you all tomorrow. Duke Sloth, out.